I believe that we have a fetish. I believe that we have a fetish. I believe that we have a fetish.
It is that time, world. Welcome back. Getting crazier and crazier out there, folks.
Oh, fuck. Getting cray-cray out there.
Welcome back to the Footy Fetish Show, where the fetish is real and the footy is soccer. It's your lovely, cuddly, always smelling lovely booty with my partner, the future manager of the USA men's national team, right here, the Ocho. Ocho, what's up with you?
Well, folks, it's quarantine life. Trying to be as productive as possible. New ideas, new episodes. Just trying to plan for when things come back to normal. Mainly staying safe and spreading the footy fetish.
Gotta spread that word, spread the good word, the holy word. And that's why we've been locked up a little too long, folks. We've been doing chants about our fetishes. But today, there is some good news. We bring you a very special episode today, folks. It's the state of the United States men's national team, where we'll be breaking down everything that is men's USA national team. And stay tuned, folks. There will be a ladies' edition as well. Mm-hmm. Lots of highs and lows to be expected on this one, of course. Ocho, do we have somebody who's feeling patriotic today we could bring in here to talk with us about these men's?
I think we do.
Somebody who could Yankee Doodle us through this Team America journey? Who you got?
You know, Booty, I think we might have a USA supporter who's ready to break down some Yankee Doodle soccer.
Thank God.
This guest and I, we met during the National C coaching license. And when I asked him if he wanted to be on a podcast, his response was when. Without further ado, everyone, please give a warm welcome to Zach Daly. What's up, Zach?
What's up, guys? Not sure if I'm super comfortable with the pun. I think Freddie Du's been one of the greatest national team players of all time, but that's fine. We'll get to that later.
Man, poor Freddie.
Awesome. Oh,
my gosh.
Can you give me one of your first memories of USA soccer? Anything?
Yeah, I'll give you probably my favorite one to date. Junior year of high school, a group of buddies of mine drove down to Birmingham, Alabama. So there's 6 of us piled in the family SUV. Of course, had FIFA going in the back seat during the 3-hour drive down there. Got there a few hours early, tailgated with the Guatemalan fans, played pickup with the Guatemalan fans. It was a really cool first US game experience. I think for all of us. So that's definitely probably my fondest memory to date with that.
What was the score?
I want to say it was 2-0. I think Steve Ralston scored and Eddie Johnson scored.
Eddie Johnson, damn! I miss him.
Man.
I miss him.
That's good stuff.
Cool,
man.
cool. Well, welcome to the show, man. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Booty, do we have anyone else that can help us paddle down this river of American soccer?
I hope you got a life jacket, baby, because we got Vinnie Baratta. Come on down. Tell us a little bit about yourself, friend.
Howdy, gentlemen. Yes, like George Washington across the Delaware.
There you go. Yeah.
Favorite USA memory. So for the 2010 World Cup, I was in Europe, and I got to watch USA England. In a field full of English soccer hooligans. So at first it was real friendly because they got on the board pretty quickly, and then everyone started just chunking alcohol in our general direction. They're like, poor Americans, you're gonna have a bad day. And then Clint Dempsey put a prayer of a shot in through the keeper's leg, and then you saw it was great to see in person how it was more like acceptance that England was gonna go down the crapper in that World Cup. Like they were very, very excited, and then it was just like deflated, and then it was just like sad acceptance for the rest of the 90 minutes. And then they were super cool to us the rest of the time. It was a lovely, but again, that was a hell of an experience.
Hell yeah, old Joe Butterfingers Hart, our favorite American of all time.
Was that Joe? I don't think that was Joe Hart, man.
Is it Robert Green?
There you go. It was Green something. I remember a Green. We never saw him again.
The English keeper?
We never saw him again. Yeah, he was something green.
You got it, Hugh, because he was wearing a green jersey. I remember thinking it was funny.
Man, we got a good we got a good little lineup today. I'm pretty excited. I know you guys are excited. This is great. Let's dive right in, baby. Welcome to the USA Men's episode. We're first going to break down the last 3 matches. The most recent one being a 4-0 win versus Cuba. This is in the, as of right now, put on hold, of course, the CONCACAF Nations League. Hugh, your thoughts? This was back on November 19th, by the way, 2019.
I mean, you expect a win, right, versus Cuba. I honestly don't remember much of this game. This was last November. But looking at it, the stats, possession for USA was 71%. Shots on goal. USA had 20 shots total, 8 on target. Cuba had 6 with 1 on target. So I mean, right there, you can kind of get a good idea of how that game went. But to be honest, I don't really remember much of the tactics and how it went down. But an expected win, so good to see that. I don't even remember who scored. Do y'all, Zach? Do you remember who scored?
Well, I did watch the highlights earlier today because I completely forgot about it. I
Yeah.
want to say Zardes had 2 of them. Maybe Sargent. I can't remember if he was in that lineup. And I'm not sure who had the other one, but honestly, just unimpressive.
I think it was Sargent, and Sargent had 2.
There you
Okay.
go. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
looking at it.
And
Jordan Morris had the other
Morris.
Okay.
Yeah, it was against Canada that Zardes went off.
That's right.
Speaking of that Canada game, Vinny, what do you remember of that?
I mean, we needed a draw against Trinidad and Tobago a couple years ago, and you couldn't get it. So
Ugh,
these
talk about
sloppy
that one.
away CONCACAF matches are kind of a unique problem for the U.S. Or they have been, and so if you can go get the expected result, ain't a bad day.
It's a good point.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. Which the last 2 games that we're going to get to in a second here, folks, were both games against Canada. One of those November 15th, which was a 4-1 U.S. win, as opposed to about a month before that on the 15th of October, the 2-0 loss to Canada. So, Vinny, would you say that loss was that in a way?
That was very much in a way.
Yep. Well, good point.
When you see who scored that goal, though, Alphonso Davies scored the goal. And then, I mean, you got to think, you're looking at the lineups here, and Tim Ream is playing center back. I'm sorry. We can do better. That's a mistake. That's a mistake. It looks like you still have Yedlin. Yedlin got some minutes. I think Michael Bradley was in, Roldan was in, and then Weston McKennie was playing as your 10 with Christian Pulisic on the left, Jordan Morris on the left, on the right, and then Josh Chardon at the 9. So, I mean, as far as the players that we have available, other than Tim Ream, I mean, that's a squad that should compete. And then if you look at the following game, I think it was a 4-1. You look at those lineups. I mean, it looked like at that point they kind of stepped back with their lineup. Zardes was up top. Letget was in the number 10. Jordan Morris as the left winger. Areola as the right winger. I think this was Serginho's Dest's first game as a right back. So you love to see that. And then John Brooks and Long as center backs. I mean, that's, for me, those are the 2 that you'll probably see in the next World Cup going forward. Maybe a rotation for Long, but I mean, to add on what you were saying, Vinny, I feel like these CONCACAF games, we get in trouble because coaches tend to experiment with the players that we have available. Because, especially in USA soccer, in American soccer, it's all about the big tournaments. It's all about the World Cup. Majority of Americans don't give a shit about the CONCACAF Nations League. So this is an excuse to kind of experiment with the players that we have. And I feel like that gets us in trouble. That's what got Jurgen Klinsmann in trouble. He tried to experiment at the beginning of the World Cup qualifiers and got his ass handed to him by Costa Rica.
So that's a uniquely American problem with the U.S. national team because you have 2 different types of games. You have games that you're playing against typically teams that are bunkering, and you've got to kind of unlock a team that's bunkered. You're usually playing these away at a really, really nasty environment or a crappy field. Then, unfortunately, we just don't get enough of these games against higher level opposition. And then once every 4 years, now you have to all of a sudden tactically play against a team that has a big talent difference, and you're more set up to bunker and counter against them. So you either have to possess through and play through a team that's bunkering, or you're the team that's countering. And it's just two very different tactical setups, and it's a tough
Interesting.
thing to unlock for any U.S. coach. Then you put that on top of the fact that you have to balance your MLS players with your European players. You very rarely get them all at the same time. There's a lot of really unique issues to being a U.S. national team manager that
Wow.
I feel like a lot of people overlook.
Yeah, that's really well said. I've never thought of it like that. A lot of good points there.
And then these two Canada games were two tactically very different games, right? So in the 4-1 win, you had Berhalter kind of doing things his old way, where he was trying desperately to work out of the back. And what Canada did in that game is they basically beat Bradley and rolled down and controlled the midfield and then pushed their wingers up, Davies being one of them, and put our fullbacks under a whole lot of pressure. And then in the win against Canada, you saw Leggett came out and they really took the game more to them. And they added more help in the midfield. And they were able to score in transition. They actually didn't have a whole lot of the ball in that second match against Canada. They went back to scoring in transition as opposed to trying to build up out of the back.
Yeah, Vinny, you know something that's important to look at too. Speaking of Canada, in both games, and you mentioned Alphonso Davies and their whole setup in the midfield. So something interesting. Davies started in the 4-1 loss. He started left back, but in the win, he started left mid, and even had a 63-minute goal too. It's a good point.
Zach, do you have any thoughts on that game or those two games?
Well, I know. I think Vinny kind of nailed it on both
Yeah.
of them, especially with the tactical change from the win to the loss. Berhalter still has this thing to where he's trying to build out that outside right back coming into the midfield. And the problem is it's really built around one player that's been hurt, and that's Tyler Adams. And so, and I can't remember. I'm pretty sure he didn't have Tyler Adams available even for that second game. And the problem was at the national team level, building around one player, it becomes very difficult when they're injured. And so it still looked like he wasn't trying to give up the ghost. And there was still, I'm trying to remember, I think Nick Lima was in there at one point, maybe earlier on, that they were trying to do that with. But Nick Lima by trade is a right back versus Tyler Adams by trade is a center mid, who Berhalter's pulled back to play right back at times to kind of move into the midfield in transition. So it's tactically, I think it just becomes tough to do that at the national team level overall. And I think hopefully you're starting to see Berhalter kind of pull back a little bit more and just kind of letting the best players play, versus trying to over X's and O's it, if you will.
Yeah, Vinny, I really like what you said about the USA team having a European mix and an MLS mix, and the amount of time that those two can play together, or at least play against the same level of competition. I mean, it's very far in between. It's just, I mean, when you said that, like a light bulb went off in my head. It was like, why are we trying to balance these two different leagues and these two different levels of skill? And then to add on another point that you said that was really great, the competition that we play. A lot of these teams are bunkering in or aren't at the technical level that a lot of these European teams are at. And you're forced to play this one tactic against all these CONCACAF teams to where, you know, the World Cup comes around, it's you've never seen play styles like this. I mean, that was spot on, Vinny. I've never thought of it like that.
Unique problems.
Yeah, man.
It ain't an easy job. Um, and Nations League and UEFA League doesn't help the situation, right? Because now there's fewer friendlies available, and you're spending more and more time playing CONCACAF minnows, and it drives me nuts that the U.S. Turned down their Copa America invite. I just don't see why you do that. You've got to be playing high level opposition, so that at least you're not seeing them for the first time every 4 years.
Right.
Definitely.
That's
And
well said.
you kind of run into that problem too with for me, I notice it more on the forwards. Like, sure, Giassi's Artes should score against these CONCACAF teams all the time, but when he plays against the European teams, does he? Because I think if you look back at forwards, look at Brian Ching was a monster in CONCACAF. When we played European teams, not so much. Was very much a shadow. And so it just becomes, it's almost two rosters, right? You have your CONCACAF roster, and then you've got your roster that'll go play against European teams, and so they don't get a mesh as well.
And CONCACAF games tend to be, they tend to be really dirty.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to be played on sloppy pitches. The European players are typically coming off of a transatlantic flight. That's not easy to deal with. Tammy Chandler, remember how much of a mess Tammy Chandler was in the 2014 qualifying cycle? He was fantastic in Germany at the same time. Whenever he'd come over here, he was just a mess. And he said it himself that he really, really struggled with the conditions. And I think that's not a unique problem to just that European player. It's a very, very different environment. MLS players are constantly traveling. It's a big country to get around to for your matches. So I think that a lot of the messier conditions.
Well, that was all well said by Vinnie. Stole the show there, my friend. Well said. Ocho's got his mind blown over here.
Seriously, fucking blown. We have problems now that we need to solve, and I don't know. I don't know how to solve them.
Modern problems, modern solutions, my friend. We will get to those. The first thing that we can do, the first thing that we can look forward to in hopes of solving those problems. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking of all of this, Nations League, we have made it to the semifinal, which obviously it is postponed. We don't know exactly when that's going to be, but we do know that we'll be playing Honduras. So that would be our next matchup that we are aware of as of right now. The other one being Olympic qualifying versus Mexico. Obviously, that is postponed as well as of right now. Vinny, hit us with some more knowledge. What you got for this Nations League semifinal? And if you could touch on the Olympic qualifying a little bit, we'd love that too.
Nations League semifinal. When we get to it, we'll get there. But for me, the big thing that I'm looking forward to is Olympic qualifying, and it's because Olympic qualifying for me is the first big sign that we're making progress, and it's because of this. We've missed out on the Olympics the past two cycles, right? 2008 and 2012. We left a generation of talents without big tournament experience, and I think that has huge consequences when you ask them to play in bigger tournaments later on. And I was really, really feeling good about Olympic qualifying in the Olympics this year because I think the talent difference that we have on the roster, top to bottom, in this cycle versus the past two it's not even close. Like if you look at the average value on transfer market, it's not a subtle difference, and the amount of professional experience and actual professional minutes that these guys have versus the past few cycles, and the amount of players that actually weren't released. So for Olympic qualifying, the teams didn't actually have to release their players. A bunch of them were forced to stay home. We only had that issue with two, maybe three players the past two cycles. We had 10 or 11 players that their clubs wouldn't let them go, which is a kind of a nice problem to have when you're looking at your talent pool. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to Olympic qualifying. I think it's really important that we're able to get a team into the Olympics and show well there. And with our past two U20 cycles and the amount of minutes that those guys have been getting, I think that there's potential for this Olympic team to be really good.
I agree. I'm very excited for the Olympic team.
What you got, Zach?
Well, even looking at the roster that they released for the under 23 for the qualifiers, you're talking about a lot of good young talent, and on that roster you don't have a Pulisic, a Tyler Adams, Serginho Dest. I'm pretty sure. Oh gosh, what's the kid from Schalke? McKinney's not on there as well. So you still have like a ton of talent that, like Vinny said, isn't released from their club or just not playing in that under 23 pool yet. And then once you get to the Olympics, I still think they have the rule to where you add 3 senior players as well.
That's right.
So that team could look a lot like your World Cup team in the coming years.
Gio Reyna.
That's two. He's not on there as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely.
Obviously, seeing him with Dortmund lately. But yeah, well said though, gentlemen, because these are a lot of guys that we're going to be looking at a couple World Cups down the line from now. Lots of youngsters. For you folks that don't know, Zach mentioned the 23 rule. Most of your players have to be under the age of 23. Therefore, that's why we're mentioning this right now. You will get to see a lot of guys that you don't normally get to see. A lot of the young guys. So it's actually should be really fun. Anybody in particular you're looking forward to seeing, Ocho?
I'm looking at the roster right now, and I mean, to be honest, I'm going to be biased here. I'm looking at one of the very few Brazilian Americans. His name is Johnny Cardozo, and he plays for Internacional in Brazil, which is a top flight team down in Brazil. He's 18, and he's already getting first team minutes. He was a captain of his under 20 team at Internacional, and I think he's got at least one cap with the USA. And 2 years ago, a year ago, when he was 17, he played for the under 23 team. So for me, I'm excited to see him. I think we'll see him in that lineup for the Olympics. So that's my player. Vinnie, who you got?
Man, there's a lot. So looking at the Olympic lineup, Paxton Pomykal. I want to see Paxton Pomykal play at a high level so he can make the jump to the men's team. He's played really, really nicely in MLS. Also, Ulysses Yanez, would really like to see him make some nice progress. Hopefully start Bundesliga minutes. And a nice performance here could help a bunch. Jesus Ferreira as well. He's an FC Dallas guy. He's starting to see a lot of minutes at FC Dallas and play really well. Just need to see these guys translate that to the international stage, especially in the forward position where things are looking a little bit dry.
Well said there too. It's kind of funny, but we're actually going to reveal our starting 11s for the current folks and the all-time starting 11s. We're each going to pick our own. It's funny you mentioned that, Vinny, because for the current starting 11, I ran a 4-4-2. For the all-time, 4-3-3. It's just I feel like we're missing that extra guy up top. It's got to come from one of the younger guys, obviously. It's probably why I'm so excited to see Reyna do something. Ulysses is an interesting one, man, because I always forget that he's actually in Bundesliga as well. Just again, him being so young. Altidore, as Zach you mentioned, there isn't a player that gets on my nerves more than Altidore. Just watching him play, just so frustrating, man. Because like you were saying, there's games where you see the potential, it's there, and then there's other ones you're expecting it, and it's just not. It's nowhere to be found, or he's on the sidelines hurt. It's
and it's
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I struggle with his first touch.
Yeah,
it is as basic as that is. It's not good when I'm at watching the game with some friends and the drinking game becomes a shot for every it's a turnover, and it's not a fun game.
He's the American Lukaku, man.
Barely get to halftime on that one. But then he's got games to where you're like, okay, yes, he's reached it. We're here. And then 2 weeks later, you're like, oh no,
we're back.
We're not there anymore. We're back. So, man.
No, definitely glad you touched on that, man. He gets me so frustrated. It doesn't matter what the tournament is, no matter what. And if he is doing well, then I'm that guy that everybody's like, you're just an asshole. You just need to lighten up. I have this hate for him. So I'm the bad guy when he is doing well. So it's like I can't get on the same page with you, Altidore. But yeah, I don't know who that next guy is. It's going to be that spark, that goal scorer.
I think.
What you got?
And it's a guy that's not on this list too that I think I failed to mention, but I've been watching a lot of Josh Sargent lately, and very impressed with his movement and finishing stuff like that. I think he's only 18, 19 now, getting consistent minutes with Werder Berman. I probably just butchered that name, but he's getting. Luckily, the notifications on my phone pop up. Okay, he's starting today. Nice. He's bagged a goal or two. I think he could step in and be that. Because even with Altidore, it's like I still want the Josie Altidore from the 2009's Confederation Cup. That's the Josie Altidore I miss. But in his defense, have we ran a second forward like we did with Charlie Davies to help him out there? Not so much. He's kind of been put on an island to where he can't just lay the ball in for a speedier forward to get through there. So, but like I said, I think the next up is got to be Josh Sargent. I'm not a huge fan of Giassi. I think Giassi has a lot of the same problems that Altidore has.
Yep.
And I think great, he played well for Columbus Crew under Berhalter, but it is what it is. He's just not impressed, unfortunately.
To me, the development of Josh Sargent is the most important single player for the U.S. national team this next cycle. We got nothing at that position. No one really has built like a single striker. And when we go over lineups later, we'll realize there's a lot of guys on the wings. There's a lot of reasonable wing talent that can develop, but there's not a lot of guys at that striker position. And Sargent's development concerns me a little bit.
Right.
This last summer was kind of goofy because you had the U20 World Cup was going on. And he was left off that roster, presumably, so that he could play on the Gold Cup roster. Then he gets clipped early from the Gold Cup roster, and the rumor was that it was due to some fitness issues. And his coaches at Bremen have said the same thing. So that guy's important, man. He really needs to work out. That guy who I'm looking at every weekend, like, do something.
That's true. That's a good point. I think we need to make the switch to the younger players because, I mean, that's not that type of system works where you incorporate that 18, 19-year-old right away. You put your faith in him. I mean, we saw it with Germany. Germany was able to take that golden generation and just kind of groom them and groom them and groom them until they got to that World Cup, and we're seeing it with France right now. There's a lot of young players on this French team. We need to give up on a lot of these older players that Greg Berhalter likes. Tim Ream needs to go. Like, why are we still holding on to him? Let him go, man. Let him go.
Tim Ream get reamed.
Shit.
Dude get reamed.
I couldn't agree more with you, Vinny. We gotta put some trust in some of these younger cats. I really want to see Tim Weah as well. Maybe not as a starter, but coming off the bench and getting some minutes. I think he's also a very important striker / winger for the future.
Yeah, I think again with him, it's injuries.
Right.
I think he suffered an injury a few months ago, came back, played for maybe 60 minutes in his first game back, and was injured in that game.
Ouch.
So it's just getting him healthy. I think he's going to be a massive bright spot for the U.S. in the future if he can stay healthy.
Lil Pell paid $10 million for him. I mean, they believe it.
Yeah, Tim Weah is a good one. Tim Weah is another one that I should be speaking about more often. I was very impressed when he was immediately he was sold, or I think he was on loan to Celtic. First game in Celtic, goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so the love and the want to be that position for us, I think, is there for him. But yeah, do you know what kind of injuries he's been having, Zach?
Part of me wants to default and say hamstring. I can't remember if it's a hamstring or a knee injury, which is probably a bit more worrisome.
It's a hammy.
Okay.
So it just keeps popping up.
Yeah, I think just like you guys were talking about, there was a golden generation with Germany and with France. I think that we had the exact opposite problem where we had a lot of the players that were born from 90 to 94. It just didn't pan out with too many of them. And I think that Klinsmann was able to kind of fill in that gap with some dual national recruiting. But when you look at the folks who didn't make the World Cup this last cycle, a lot of it was guys who were just playing past their prime. When you look at professionals who right now are like, let's say in their late 20s, should be kind of in their prime, we just don't have a lot of high quality guys in that age range. And right now, what we're having to do is kind of push along the way younger guys. The most promising players in our player pool are in their early 20s. Those are guys who are going to be a little bit streaky, a little bit inconsistent. My hope is that it pays off in the next couple cycles.
Agreed.
Yeah, definitely time to put the trust and the love into these youngsters' hands for sure.
And I'm just thinking, one of the solutions to your problem, Vinny, of having too many games against these CONCACAF minnows is these players have got to go to Europe. That's the only way that they'll play against decent competition, even if it is for Celtic, you know? Like, that's still a good league over there for them to develop and grow. You know, if they stay in the MLS is growing. I'm not going to knock the MLS 100% right now, like I have been in the past. It's starting to grow and be a competitive league. But maybe that's the solution, Vinny. Maybe the solution is to have more of our players playing club in Europe, so that when it comes time to the World Cup stage, you know, they're prepared for that level of talent. I mean,
And Hugh, I think that's happening, not necessarily through MLS, but through MLS academies. If you're when we go through lists later on, you're going to see a lot of these kids. A lot of the kids who were big at the U20 World Cup are kids who've been getting not MLS minutes, USL minutes since they were 16, 17. And a lot of them aged out of the MLS system. Salcedo, Yanez, Alex Mendez, Ricky Ledesma, guys who actually MLS couldn't hang on to. And then they went ahead and went to Europe. But being American and playing in Europe is tough, not just because you have the cultural differences and language issues that you end up running into, but you can't do it until you're 18. So unless you have a European passport, you can't head over there until you're 18. But a lot of these kids are doing it right as they're 18. They're heading over to Europe. And hopefully that ends up being the model that, you know, a kid will be identified through an MLS academy, get USL, you know, low-level professional minutes, but still professional minutes. And then when they're 18, okay, either an MLS club is signing them or they're heading to Europe to play, you know, to start playing in Europe. But an 18-year-old in Europe is already aging commodity.
Mm-hmm.
At 18, you need to start sniffing the first team or playing a lot of U19 minutes, which is where a lot of these guys are settling in. And fortunately, this last cycle, we've got a lot of guys doing that. We're not just tracking 5 guys in Europe anymore. We're tracking 20 or 30. And not all of them are going to pan out, and that's fine. It's like playing the lottery. You know, all these kids are like lottery tickets. You send our lottery tickets all over the world, and you get a McKennie to pan out. You get a Tyler Adams to pan out. You get a Pulisic. You'll hopefully get a Reyna, and you get 11 of them, and you're in fair shape.
Yep, I do like that.
I like that, man. Lottery tickets, baby. Brazil's hitting jackpots like every year.
It's that culture, bro.
We gotta hit that jackpot.
Born into it, man.
That's right. We gotta hit that jackpot. Well, that being said, gentlemen, I like all this talk about who should be our future. Who's your current starting 11 right now? Let's start this off. Why don't we do it with Zach? You want to take over first? Who you got?
You want my current starting 11?
Do that current starting 11 for us.
All right, I've got because U.S. Soccer loves their 4-3-3. That's what I went with. I've got Zach Steffen. Across the back line, I've got Serginho Dest, John Brooks, Matt Miazga, and DeAndre Yedlin. My 3 in the middle are going to be Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, Christian Pulisic. And then up top, center forward with Sargent, right forward Tyler Boyd, left forward a healthy Tim Weah.
Nice.
Interesting. I think all 3 of our midfields are going to be the exact same. Or all 4 of our midfields. I mean,
my thing with it is if this is going to be our current generation, then we've got to start playing them, you know, together. I think this World Cup cycle is a build up to, you know, 2026 when we're hosting it, right? Did I get my math right on World Cups?
2026.
So we need, So 2022's got to be looked at as the year that you're getting these kids, because most of them still are meaningful minutes to where when we come and host it here in the U.S., that it's not a crap team. It's not seen the field a lot. So
That's right, man.
that was my thinking.
Beautiful stuff. Vinny, who you got?
I've got Dest at left back, Brooks, Aaron Long at right back. Sorry, Aaron Long is the other center back. At right back, Reggie Cannon or DeAndre Yedlin. Probably Yedlin. He's a little bit more consistent. He's been professional for longer. Across the middle, McKinney, Adams. And then here's the hard part for me. Pulisic, and I think this is also an issue that Greg Berhalter is going to wrestle with. Do you deploy him as a central attacking mid or as a winger? Or do you let him do a little bit of both? So my lineup, I'm going to have Pulisic and Sebastian Lletget together, and they can basically rotate between the left wing and central attacking mid. So wherever Pulisic isn't, Lletget is. And then up top, Josie Altidore. And on the wing, right now, probably Jordan Morris, but eventually I'd like for Tim Weah to be that guy.
I like you brought that up about Pulisic too, because obviously everybody who's been following him has been following USA Soccer. I have some friends that really follow Dortmund rather hard, so hard. And I'll say that one of the biggest issues with him is, do you put him on that left wing where he seems to really take over and become a different kind of player, but whenever I see him do that, that's usually when he ends up hurt. That's my thing with him. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Seems like he pushes a little too hard when he is on that left wing. But he is baby Jesus. And he is the future. Baby American Jesus Pulisic. Who you got, Ocho?
All right, so my goalkeeper is definitely going to be controversial. I went with Bill Hamid. The few times I've seen him, I really liked him. The times that I have seen Zach Steffen, he was a huge disappointment, and it was on the rumors, or maybe it was right after we had found out that he was going to Man City, and it was like, really, what do they see in this guy? You know, so that really turned me off. I'm going to have to see a really good performance from Zach Steffen. Across the back line, from right back to left back, I have Serginho, Miazga, Brooks, and then Robinson, Anthony Robinson, young dude from, I think he's at Leeds right now, if I remember that correctly, or like he's in the championship. And he was actually on his way to AC Milan, but he didn't pass his physical within enough time before the transfer market ended. Anyway, I got him at left back. My midfield, Tyler Adams at the 6, McKinney at the 8, and I think Pulisic could pull off the 10 only because I want to see Gio Reyna as my left wing, and then I'm stuck between Boyd and Sargent as my striker, and then I have Paul Areola as my right wing. I just want a lot of speed and aggression up top for that. So that's my starting 11 right there.
You know what's really whack, Hugh? I actually have Reyna on that left wing too.
I knew you would, man. We talked about him a lot during that Champions League episode.
I love that guy, and he hasn't even had a cap yet for USA. And I just, from what I've seen, I'm really excited about him.
You know what? When he said, someone asked him, you know, who are you going to play for? I think it's Portugal or United States. He was like, oh, that's not even a question. Like it was such a concrete answer. Like he had no doubt in his mind that it was going to be the USA from the start. He's like, that's home. That's where I want to play. And it was like, I want that guy on my team. You know, I really like that.
So we need most of all. We need the attitudes most of all right now.
Definitely.
That's an attitude you want to have.
Yes,
absolutely.
Definitely. Who's in your starting 11, Booty?
Guys, I had Sargent way up top, and as I said earlier, I mean 4-4-2, just because. I don't even have that third striker for you because it's just not. I'm not putting fucking Josie up there. Fuck that. By the time I type his name, he will be on the sideline, fucking stretching out that hamstring. I can't do it. So I gotta go, and then my midfield, I got McKinney, Adams, Pulisic, and I got Reyna on the left. And then my back line, I got Yedlin, Long, Brooks, and Dest. I'm a big Dest guy. Even another guy that hasn't had a lot of caps with the U.S., but watching him with Ajax has just been really impressive. He's getting that European exposure that we've been talking about pretty much all episode, so I love that too. Man, my keeper is tough because I hate Steffen the last few times I've watched him. I can't I can't really see. It kind of scares me because it makes me wonder if Pep doesn't want you and he can't figure out somebody to buy you, then he's loaned you out. I can't figure out if I want you or not. Right now, Gusman's going to have to be there, even though he's in a wheelchair and he's old as shit.
Oh,
But
The polar bear.
yeah, old as fuck. He's old as the polar bears, but he's there. Yeah, man. The last time I have this horrible vision of Stefan in my mind, that Mexico game, the last Mexico game, where he was smoking meth or something, and he was just giving Dorito goals. Like, here, you want 3 goals? Let me just have one.
That was the game that I remember him fucking up. It was against Mexico, and you're like, "What are you? Why are you doing this to me right now? This is fucking Mexico."
I was a little drunk, and I remember just being like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
So isn't it? It's really weird to have the U.S. national team not have a world-class goalie ready to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes,
It's been that since 1998. We have had Casey Keller, Brad Friedel, Tim Howard. We've had like a solid keeper ready to go. And Stefan, so look at, and obviously it's one game, right? Watch highlights of Stefan playing for Columbus a couple years ago against Atlanta in the playoffs. It's what he can do. He's just too damn young. But rumor has it he's been pretty solid, I think, in the Bundesliga this year. And rumor has it that Man City is going to recall him to be the primary backup, which might not be a great thing for him at this point developmentally. That's kind of gets me nervous.
Yeah, I would. I understand this Stefan hate, but how much of that is what he's being told to do versus what he's wanting to do naturally?
Ah, interesting.
true.
That's an interesting point. Is Brad Friedel known? Not Brad Friedel. What's his name? Greg Berhalter. Is he known for playing out the back using his goalkeepers?
What he's trying to do.
Interesting.
And so again, you look at those Stefan turnovers. It's again poor decision making.
Yeah.
Now, does he? If he's told, hey, just play in goal, distribute out wide. Do those mistakes happen? Maybe not. But the other side is they've got to make mistakes, right, to develop. So yeah, we've got to learn to suffer to hopefully get through it. But like you said, I don't know how much of that is him versus what he's being told to do. Because you would think a Man City keeper is wanting to play out of the back, so hopefully he's going to get that training. Him being not a reserve keeper, but the backup keeper may not be the worst thing. You know, playing behind, is it Ederson?
Yeah, Ederson.
It may not be terrible because Ederson's great out of the back. It's something he'll see every day. Keepers have a long lifespan, if anything. I mean, what their prime is when they're like 42. So we got some time to kind of see if he develops into that, prototype for City. Who knows?
That's a beautiful thing that you mentioned, though, because I remember watching that Mexico game, and if you notice, that whole game, that was all we did. We just played around with the ball in the back. So you might be right there. You might have a point because maybe that was the game plan. It obviously didn't work, but I remember Hugh and I talking about that too. We're just like, cool. We're gonna look aggressive at all today, or we're just playing keep away, or
Yeah.
So that's a good point too. Kind of got lost in the sauce of getting our ass whooped, So, but
Completely understand that.
yeah,
We all did.
important thing to mention though, for sure. Maybe Zach was not smoking meth that day. Who knows? But that being said, gentlemen, since we've already mentioned a few times, well, all these great keepers that we have had, all these great teams that we've had throughout the years. Who is your all-time starting 11 for the USA men's? Zach, you want to take us away again?
Yeah, man. So I kind of based my base lineup off the 2002 World Cup team, and kind of went through there and said, okay, per position in this starting lineup, is there a better player? So my goalkeeper to start out with is Tim Howard. From there, left back is Steve Cherundolo. Center back, Alexi Lawless. Center back, Eddie Pope. Right back, DeMarcus Beasley. A little bit older DeMarcus Beasley. Center mid, John O'Brien. With, and I'll get some crap from one of my friends. Claudio Reyna is the other one.
I like that, man.
I like that pick.
I like Claudia.
The other one is Ernie Stewart. Again, when he was playing midfield, and then right forward Donovan, center forward. I don't think it gets any better than Brian McBride. And then left forward Clint Dempsey.
Hell yeah, I like that. I like the Claudia love. Shoot, we were just talking about his son a few minutes ago.
That's true. Yeah, generations.
Get to watch his son blossom. We watched him blossom. When we were kids.
He's in mine.
Fun stuff. I ain't gonna hate on you for that. I like the Alexi shout out too. I know Hugh loves that one.
Absolutely. Yeah, guy. Gotta love it, Hugh.
Yeah.
He loves him some Alexi.
O'Brien's a good shot too. I debated on him.
Vinny, what you got?
So out the back, Beasley at left back, and then Bocanegra and Pope and Cherundolo. And then across the middle, I'm going to have Reyna actually as well. Tab Ramos, he was a little bit before our time. I don't think he gets enough credit.
Mm-hmm.
And then people forget how good Michael Bradley was in his day. So I got Bradley there as well in the middle.
Interesting. All right.
And then up front's tough, man, because there's so many good guys you could have there. But what I settled on was McBride, Donovan, and I don't think it's too early to put Pulisic on it.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Whoa!
I like it.
Hot
I
take.
like it. Hot take.
Hot
That's
take.
a hot take. Who else? What other American player has produced at a top 3 Premiership club to the level that he has, even this season?
I mean, you could argue Dempsey at Fulham.
Yeah, so Dempsey is who I was debating.
Definitely.
Dempsey is who I was debating versus Pulisic.
I like the Michael Bradley. So it was between John O'Brien and Michael Bradley for me. I just felt O'Brien was a better Bradley.
Yeah, O'Brien was a good shout. I debated on him a lot as well. I'm just not that familiar.
Nice. All right, well, I'm going to get into mine. Here we go. Starting 11. Obviously, Tim Howard. Who else? I don't think anyone else will compete with Tim Howard. And then on the back line, I got Yedlin at right back, Jeff Cameron, Brooks, Beasley on the left. I went with a 4-4-2. My 4 midfielders, I got Jermaine Jones as my number 6. I really liked him as a center defensive mid when he was in his prime. And then I got Kobe Jones and Claudio Reyna right on top of him in kind of a diamond with Donovan as the number 10. And then I got Dempsey and McBride up top as my 2 strikers. Basically just using Yedlin and Beasley flying up and down the wings with just tons of creativity and technique in the middle with Dempsey and McBride just, playing off each other as a double striker. So I think that one would win every day of the week.
I take that.
Hot take.
That's hot take.
It's funny, historically, Sharon Dolo was our right back for so long.
Yeah.
He was so consistent. And Beasley was our left back for so long. He was so consistent that, like, in this last cycle, it was like, oh, we need to find a new one? We're having a really hard time, man. And hopefully it's settled now with Destin Yedlin for a while. But it's easy to take for granted when you have long-standing stalwarts like that.
That's right. Tell him, Vinny. Get Tim Ream the fuck out of here. Go get Ream somewhere else, you fuck. You folk.
Daniel Lovett's back there, man.
Ugh.
Every time I see him on a team sheet, I die a little on the inside.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. Booty, who you got in your starting 11?
Alexi. From my back.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I got Timmy in goal. And, of course, as I mentioned earlier, I got the 4-3-3 running now since we got some strikers. We got too many strikers to pick from. But I got Timmy in goal, of course. I think the only other debate I had with myself was, Timmy. Then I got, of course, Beasley, Eddie Pope, of course, Bocanegra. I had to throw my man Alexi in there. I know Hugh's going to love that too.
Shaking my head right now. For those who can't see me, I'm shaking my head.
I was an avid listener of Alexi's podcast for a little while, and then I started listening to this show called the Footy Fetish Show. And now I don't need it anymore. So now I have to give him shout-outs when I can. Uh,
There you go. There you go.
I would thoroughly enjoy when he would go on rants about the USA though. They were usually pretty fucking funny, but he is kind of a douche. Anyway, midfield, Claudio Reyna, of course. I got Donovan. I got Kobe Jones. The only other Kobe Jones, baby. And then up top, I got Dempsey. I got Brian McBride. I threw Ronaldo in there too. Guy I remember just watching as a kid, and he's one of those people that stuck out to me. Just his effort that he would give. Him and McBride both, because I remember McBride, especially hustling his ass off in that 1998 World Cup where we just got embarrassed. But I remember those two just busting ass. Them being the only two, it seemed like they were busting ass. To make it somewhat reasonable, I think McBride might have had the only goal we had, if I'm not mistaken. Don't hold me 100% on that. It was either him or Ronaldo, but yeah, that's my boys right there. Alexi's captain, of course, for sure.
Forever.
Makes sense.
Dude, shut up. God. Fuck. Killing me, Booty.
Alexi.
I really like how Eric Wijnaldum is still involved in the soccer scene. You know, he's still commentating. He's still very much involved. I mean, I haven't seen him lately, but I can always remember him being a commentator or an analyst in some form or fashion with some of the USA games.
He was coaching some like minor league clubs or something like that. Or
I think he's somewhere in the USL right now.
There you go.
Just trying to remember.
No shit.
Yeah.
McBride is actually the GM for the USMNT.
Yeah, I did see that. I forgot about that.
Ernie Stewart is something as well.
Yeah, he's the technical director. He's like the big head honcho guy.
Yeah.
Which I really like, man. Like I like that there's more accountability now between positions. That's just U.S. soccer has had some issues, and I was hoping it was something we wouldn't talk about. But just top to bottom, you hear some horror stories come out of there. I don't want to shit on them too much, but it just strikes me as an organization that really needs to get its act together. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I agree.
Agreed.
Like, I think the success is in spite of it, not because of it. And I would hope that Stewart and McBride can have something to do with changing that.
Yeah, it's always nice to see someone who has been on the field be in a position like that, because then they get to know what it's like from the bottom all the way to the top. You know, they were able to have their feet on the ground, they had their hands deep inside the mud, and then they get to sit back and kind of, you know, allow it to flourish in their way, in the way that they wish it had flourished or what had worked for them when it was working for them. So I totally agree with you. It also, they're a public face. You know, everyone in America that saw them play knows them way more. They're more. It's an intimate person because, you know, there's been wins and losses with those people. So seeing them in that position, it kind of holds them more accountable. Like you said, that's a really good point.
Definitely can help kind of steer us in the right direction as far as we were saying with all these youngsters we're about to start seeing. Could be, you know, that could be some guys that really implement some sort of identity or some sort of leadership that we need to grasp onto and run with. So that can it's good to see those guys still being as involved as they are. So obviously, with that being said, guys, we've been through some ups and some downs as far as USA past and present. But the big glaring issue here is obviously what's been going on since, I would personally say, Jurgen's departure. Things have been kind of on a steady downward little spiral. Maybe some folks I know say ever since that World Cup qualifying loss to Trinidad and Tobago. Where the spiral begins, I'll leave that up to you, gentlemen. But first, let's touch on some negatives and some positives of what has been going on with USA Soccer and what has been going on with that elephant in the room. My man Zach had a few things to say. Why don't you tell us a couple negatives and some couple positives from your eyes on what's going on with men's USA Soccer?
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with the negatives. It's there still feels like a massive lack of a team identity within U.S. soccer. Everything is just so spread out and just so, you know, do we have a playing style? Don't we have a playing style? You know, what players are going to be in here to, you really hang your hat on. Earlier we talked about, Brian McBride, Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey. You had characters within the team. You had guys that, players, not to the quality of like a Zlatan of guys that have that big of personality, but you had personalities within the team. This generation, I don't see it yet still. Even Pulisic, I think one of the talks was, him not taking a PK in a game previously, and stepping up and doing that and taking leadership and doing that, and going from there. But again, these kids are young, so hopefully they'll kind of come through and that'll show. My other issue, and I think it's a big one since Klinsmann left, and I almost put this guy on my starting lineup, but we just haven't seen him in forever, is Fabian Johnson. And the other one is Timmy Chandler.
Yep.
There's now a huge issue with a distrust with the German-American player since Klinsmann left. Apparently there was a huge rift in the locker room with it when that happened, and it's really unfortunate because Fabian Johnson and Timmy Chandler have had really good seasons. And you're going to tell me that they can't come into this roster and contribute right away is a huge problem. And so it's... Again, it's just the negative, like you said, it's still this downward spiral, it feels like. And then even the coaching decisions after Jurgen left. You've got Bruce Arena, who's going to come in to patch it up, right? Ugh. Bruce Arena was going to come in, patch it up, we're going to be fine, we're going to get to a World Cup no matter what. And then the lasting image for me is not the 2 goals that were scored against us, but seeing the players in training the day before, having to be carried onto the field because they didn't want to get their boots wet, and this other stuff was such a that's not like an iconic American team. That's not guys willing to do the dirty work just to get the job done. That's guys needing to be carried across a puddle of water by their trainers. That hurts, and that's not an American identity. And I think another guy that should go on one of our lists for either all time or possibly current is Jeff Cameron. That was a guy that would go in and do the dirty work, but he doesn't play in those games. And so it became a team of, it felt like Bruce Arena's guys that he only trusted, and that's where it got us. And the problem is I feel like a kid now that I've gone to like going to transition into the positives. I feel like a kid who had his homework eaten. I don't have a lot, if any. The team is still struggling. We have this generation of players that we should be setting up to do such a great job, and we beat Cuba 4-0 in Cuba. And you look at that and go, if that was on home soil, we beat Cuba maybe by 10, and then half their team defects. And we can't beat this team at their place in front of 500 people more than 4. And if you look at those goals, now that I'm trying to remember, 2 or 3 of them were just junk goals that you had to finish. Now, at the end of the day, a goal's a goal, but we can't build up from that. We can't do anything to kind of combine. So there's still this, this huge lack of playing style, team identity, and just players that we should be getting into play that just aren't there. I wish I had like a positive. I mean, the positives are, the players we have, but is that because Jurgen Klinsmann's statements he said when he was a coach? These players need to be playing overseas, and they need to be getting meaningful minutes, not just playing overseas, but playing for Champions League teams. So now you look at Serginho Dest. What is he doing? Playing overseas, Champions League team. Christian Pulisic, Champions League team. Giovanni Reyna, Champions League team. Meaningful minutes again. Tim Weah, before he left PSG, was playing possibly in Champions League. I think he played a game or 2 in a Champions League. So we're starting to get these players in. Now at the coaching level, do we have the proper people in place to coach these players? I don't know if we do. I hope we do. I like Greg Berhalter. I just went and watched the 2002 World Cup game against Mexico, and Berhalter played amazing. So I want this guy to do well. He's a fellow American. I want him to do well. It's just I'm not impressed yet.
Yeah, that's well said.
Yep.
My number 1 negative, Zach, on my list. Number 1, no identity.
Yeah, same here. No identity / play style.
And you know what? You know what's crazy about that too is what you said about identity is different than the mindset I had about our identity. I had more of the actual on the field identity, and you kind of had the off the field. And you're 100% right on your take of it. That's how bad the identity situation is. I think there's so many different angles of it. See, mine was the fact that we don't have one. I felt since that game we lost against Trinidad. Okay, like since then, I felt like we just go out there and we just kick the ball around.
Yeah.
Until Berhalter got the last few games of Berhalter, like you're saying, I could kind of start to see something. But you look at all these other teams that have had World Cup success, have had major tournament success. Look at Italy. Italy for years, they have the identity of, okay, we're going to be disciplined in the back and we're going to play great defense and we'll score goals here and there when they come to us. You look at Germany, completely different. Their identity, we're going to score a lot of goals. We're going to attack. I felt like USA just doesn't have anything really. It's just we're just there. It's kind of like in limbo, floating, and with a combination of what you said about we got guys now with their whole mentality is I don't want to walk across a wet field. That doesn't sound American at all.
Yeah.
Throughout the history of time, not even soccer.
Doesn't even sound like a professional athlete.
Right.
Or does it? I don't know.
Fuck.
It's so my issue becomes talking about team identities. Brazil's going to play their own style. Argentina, Spain, Italy, England, even. You know who my favorite team was in the 2014 World Cup was, or 2018? Iceland.
Iceland.
Oh yeah.
Iceland looked like the American team of old. Guys that were going to go in, do the dirty work, get the job done, and have a whole country, behind them. Now, granted, 90% of their country was in the stadium cheering for them, but you want that to come back. And, hopefully the positives that come out of this is you do have Ernie Stewart and Brian McBride in charge.
That's a positive.
Those are two guys that got it. So hopefully they make decisions that, to where this team slowly, matures, have some of that mentorship from those guys to where they'll finally get it.
Yeah. And like you were saying, it's starting to kind of take shape going back to that Mexico game we're talking about. Hey, if you want to play out the back, that's fine. Let's make sure we got the right guys to do it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you were saying too. It's gonna make sure we can find the right guys. And I would say, and I'm kind of agreeing with you again. The positives, there aren't many, but I would say the only one that I can think of is, this is the opportunity for the young guys to step in, and maybe we can find who is really good with this sort of playing style that Berhalter wants to do.
Yeah, I would say that my biggest positive for me was that after we lost Jurgen, it led to us not qualifying for the World Cup because we switched to an all MLS or a majority MLS roster. The positive from that for me was that we started from scratch. We're like, okay, this roster sucks. We've got to start over. It's un-American for us to not be in a World Cup. That was a just total. That's shame. That's shame, man. You should be able to just qualify first and foremost. Once we're there, it's a different story. We weren't even expected to make it out of the group in 2014, and that we shocked the world. But for me, that was the positive. Not qualifying for the U.S. woke up everybody. Holy shit, we didn't qualify. What do we do now? Okay, let's start from scratch. Let's go look at these younger players. Let's try and rebuild a new team, a new generation of players. And we're starting to see that. Now, we still have some old players, like Altidore is still showing up every once in a while. Bradley's still showing up. Dempsey just, gave us a salute and was like, I'm out of here, peace. But, at least we're moving on. We're moving on, and we're starting that new generation. The negatives, same as you two have said. It comes from a lack of identity, a lack of play style. For me, I just think back to teams that I've coached. All right, when you walk up to a team for the first time, first thing you do is you evaluate the players you have, and then you build the identity and you build the play style off of them. You don't come in with a very rigid coaching style and you're like, I'm going to beat this play style into all of you. You guys are going to adapt to my system. No. We're stuck with the players we have. Let's use them and build something around them, and then we can grow from that. Oh man, that's where it starts for me. It's got to be with the players, and we have some fantastic players all over the place. It's now going to be up to the leadership and the coach to be able to create that chemistry and find that play style and find that identity. For me, to add on to what Zach was saying, the one player for me that has that locker room identity is Weston McKennie. Whenever you see him score a goal, or whenever you see someone else score a goal, he goes up to him and he's doing like some dance, or he's trying to create this fun atmosphere. And I think for me, he's that player that we can build that locker room identity off of and grow. Vinny, what are your thoughts, Vinny? I see your body language over there.
No, I'm echoing what you guys say, man. I love McKinney because whenever you see a cheap shot, you will see McKinney will be the first person rushing to get into that space.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and
Yeah.
Pulisic is a gamer as well. And I totally agree, guys. I think that this team, I couldn't tell you what it is. I don't know if it's because other teams have also gotten more expensive. The players are playing in nicer leagues. But this team has lost a chunk of its edge since. I mean, you can go as far back as the end, like since when Bradley left. And by the way, I had a lot of issues with Jurgen Klinsmann. Hugh knows that.
Yeah, me and you, we went back and forth with Bruce and Jurgen.
Yeah, but he had a lot of good things to say when it came to the big picture, as to the fact you had to have folks going abroad. Yeah, man. The only things I would add is, one, you do have to remember we did have an entire generation of players that just didn't pan out, right? Remember we had the U.S. academies being kind of centralized in Bradenton, and that was where Landon and Beasley and those guys all came. We disbanded that. I can't think of when, but they disbanded that a few years ago, and then moved to high-level development academies, start to match them up with MLS clubs. We're just starting to see the beginning of dividends of that now, right? Gio Reyna was with Red Bulls. Pulisic didn't really come through that through that. McKinney came up through FC Dallas.
Tyler Adams, wasn't he a Red Bull player?
Also from New York. So that's starting to pay dividends, but even those guys are guys in their early 20s, and those guys are going to be a bit streaky. So we do have to be a bit patient. And as far as coaching goes, 2018 drove me kind of nuts because we were playing a lot of young guys, and I love that. And I love that we didn't see almost anyone from the disaster in Trinidad. But they spent the entire year saying, "Yeah, we're looking for a coach. We're gonna wait until the World Cup is available." And then they got a guy who was from their backyard. They didn't interview Tata Martino because he only spoke Spanish. I'm like, really, guys?
It's a huge mistake too.
And they only interviewed one more candidate, the guy who was FC Dallas' coach at the time. The way they handled that was, to me, gross. Now, look, Greg Berhalter is there. He's the guy. Can he be the guy to put things together? I hope so. But he's going to have a lot of nice tools to work with. But we are going to have to be patient because these are streaky younger players. And younger players, their form tends to rise and fall a little bit more. When they have bad runs of form, you're going to have to deal with it. So, things might not be that hot this cycle because we got a lot of irons in the fire right now. And so, by 2026, I'm feeling a lot better than I am 2020.
Agreed.
Yeah, just to touch on that Tata Martino thing, I don't think we were ever going to get him. I think that he was always going to be destined for Mexico, especially early in his career. He helped set up a lot of the Mexican youth side clubs and helped with that, which you look at who did that for us was Klinsmann, more or less, as a technical director. So, but again, I'm with you. You interview, I think, Oscar Pereira out of FC Dallas, who's known for youth development. I mean, look at that academy and what they're pushing through. It's insane.
Definitely. Definitely.
So you interview him, maybe, and then Greg Berhalter. That's it.
After a year of waiting.
In 8 months. Yeah, 8 months to a year. You had 2 interviews? Come on, guys. Come on.
If there wasn't an agenda, I don't know. I mean, that's so obvious that there was an agenda. Oh wait, let's not forget that the brother of one of those two candidates was the CEO of USA Soccer. So
I wasn't even going to bring that up.
Yeah, I would.
there was an agenda, man. There was a fucking agenda from the start, dude. I'm still salty about that. If you can't tell.
I am too, but you know what? A successful Olympics and World Cup will make me feel a lot better about it.
Yeah, agreed.
Who's got the Olympic team right now? Is it Tab?
Jason Price,
Okay, all right. I don't mind that.
good coach
Yeah.
in his own. Pushed out a lot of good players at Salt Lake. It's so funny because with the MLS development academies, you're basically seeing Salt Lake, LA, Dallas, and New York, and those are the ones that are pushing out all the products.
Mhm.
If all the other clubs could put in that kind of investment, and the little pet project and the little pet peeve for me too is if they could identify too a little bit better with in some of the Hispanic communities and do a little bit more scouting there and get some of those guys into that kind of development system.
Dude, absolutely. And that was my big fault with Jurgen, is that he didn't really dive into those Latin communities and find enough of those players. There was a whole bunch of players that slipped through the cracks during his tenure as coach.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of potential to be found there. Jonathan Gonzalez going to Mexico, that was for me was like, okay, here's a nice example. And then
Absolutely.
you hear the interviews with his dad, and his dad was saying, the U.S. soccer guys were not talking to us during the whole process. That just drives me nuts, man. Now, obviously, look, it's a very personal decision, and I'm not, I'm never going to fault anyone for what side they want to go with. But man, at least identify these guys and getting them into the system and playing for American teams at earlier levels. There's soccer talent scattered all over the place here. I think we're getting better about finding it, but there's potential for this to be a sleeping giant if we just take it seriously at a national level.
Yeah, I'm sure we could have an entire series of podcasts on youth development within the U.S. and what needs to be fixed. And I would echo a lot of what Vinnie just said. I mean, U.S. has got to do a better job developing and identifying.
Sounds like a future Footy Fetish episode right there. Bring you boys back home. How you like that?
Hey, we got the time to do it.
I mean, we got research time now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, seriously.
Absolutely. Well, man, that was sexier than I thought it would be, to tell you the truth. Gentlemen, that was great. By the way, if you haven't checked out Vinnie and Hugh's back and forth Facebook battles, I used to wake up daily, crack a beer, and I was ready to go check it.
Damn.
You got to go search far back, my friend. You got to go to I want to say it was 16.
2014.
It was
2014, 15, 16 is around those times.
okay. All right.
Awesome.
We got to find those.
Dude, Vinny, we had some good discussions, man. We had some really good discussions on Facebook.
We did. There were discussions.
I'd pop in with a beer. I'd be like, "Ooh, Vinny came back." Vinny got
Vinny would corner me. Vinny would corner me for sure. For sure.
I would just want to jump in, gab Hugh, make fun of Brazil really quick, and run out really quick, and be like, "Oh, we're gonna see Vinny."
Oh man.
Well, that being said, gentlemen, let's move on to a happier time, a happier place. What are your top USA games of all time? Folks, we each are picking 3 of our favorites. There are many, but we're only picking the top 3. Beautiful as they are, brings us to happier times. We'll count down. What is your number 3 favorite game of all time? Vinny, take it away.
Korea 2002, 2-0.
2-0.
That's number 3. Are we doing get all 3 out of the way?
Yeah,
here?
go for it.
All right. Number 2, and this is not in the pantheon of great U.S. games, but the Ghana game that started off the 2014 World Cup. That was significant because Ghana had just knocked us out of the World Cup the time before, and if we did not get the result in that game, there was no way we were getting out of that group.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And so I remember literally walking into a sports bar, looking up, and Clint Dempsey scoring about 5 seconds after kickoff, and then it's Anthony Brooks. That was special.
Oh my god, that was awesome.
And then number 1 for me is Spain Confederations Cup semifinal 2009. So They were on a 3-year, I think 35-match unbeaten streak at the time. And we bunkered and countered, and like those USA teams used to do, we just got the job done. And that got me way too excited for the 2010 World Cup.
Hell yeah. Those are beautiful.
Those are good. I like those. I remember all of those. Those were awesome.
What you got, Zach?
All right, so I got number 3. Is going to be U.S. Ghana at 2014 again. Same thing, man. Was in a sports bar, 5 seconds in, the place is overpacked, and just losing our minds. But again, it was that after 8 years, finally getting some revenge on Ghana, knocking us out of 2 World Cups, and finally being able to kind of put them away for once. And it took John Brooks' header, I think in like the 86th minute, where he, I think, blacked out for at least 30 seconds after he headed it. After that, I've got to go with number 2 is 2009, U.S. versus Egypt in the Confed Cup. If you remember, we had to win by 3 to get out of that group. Because we'd played so poorly in the 2 previous games, but the window was open. We had to score 3 goals, win by 3 against Egypt. And we did it. And so to me, that was a quintessential, like, this is the heart of a U.S. team. This is the character of we're going to go in, do what we need to do, and get the job done. And then my number 1, I mentioned it earlier. Hugh had sent me a text earlier about, hey, could I jump in and help out with this? So kind of reading through our notes, I wanted to go back and watch the 2002 World Cup. That was my first World Cup that I remember ever watching. And I think one of the biggest games for me was that 2002 game against Mexico. The Portugal game was great, but that game against Mexico, I think, gave me a super appreciation for Kobe Jones in that last 10 minutes. I don't know if you remember that game. Go back and watch it. Watch the last 10 minutes. Kobe Jones just gets absolutely brutalized by that back line. I think he accounted for 2 yellow cards and a red card. I don't know if you remember the Rafa Marquez studs out.
Holy shit.
But into his cheek. But Kobe Jones with a 2-0 lead just did what he had to do to seal the win. And again, like you said, starts the Dose Ciro era of U.S. soccer. Hopefully we get back to those days soon.
Yes, sir. That was a fun World Cup, too. 2002, you had to wake up at like 4 in the morning because it was in South Korea. Remember that shit?
Yeah, man. So I just moved here to Tennessee. My next door neighbor, who's down a couple houses actually, was from South Africa. Got me involved. Never seen a World Cup before in my life. So I would show up at his house at like 4 o'clock in the morning. It was a bunch of like college professors, cooked like this amazing breakfast every morning, and just watched games. And it was my kind of baptism by fire of watching soccer.
Nice.
Love it to this day.
That's awesome. Good memories.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Love those, man. Good stuff. What you got, Ocho?
I mean, my number 3, USA versus Spain, just like Vinnie said, we broke that undefeated streak by Spain. They'd just been on a roll. Everybody was like, well, here comes Spain. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. And that advanced us to eventually play Brazil, which I don't know if y'all remember that. We went up 2-0 at halftime, and then they came back and beat us. And I was like, well, we had a good effort there. But that 2-0 game, I remember where I was, who I was with, so good memory there. Number 2 for me was USA Algeria, 2010. Landon Donovan, last minute. Oh, my God. I was in a red chair. I remember I was by myself. Everybody was at work. I was home from college. And just, like, lost my mind in my living room. Like, what the fuck? Great memory. Just absolutely amazing memory. And then my number 1 has been said already, the USA-Ghana game. I was actually in Brazil. I wasn't at the game, but I was in Brazil. And this German guy was with me. And down the street, I can see the game on the big screen. And I can see all the players, singing the national anthem. And I'm like, hey, y'all wanna hurry up and get down there? And they're like, oh no, we want to get food. And I'm like, all right, well, this is my country. I'm gonna go in. So I start hauling ass. I'm like sprinting to try and get into the what they call the FIFA Fan Fest. And I remember as I get in and I like round the corner, I look up to the screen and it was like, bang, Cliff Dempsey. And it was like the whole place went nuts. Beer was going just like you guys, same kind of atmosphere, just eruption, total eruption. And then of course John Brooks, in the 86th minute with that header, and it's like, what a great way to start the World Cup off. It was just that's my number one memory, definitely. Really, what about you? What are your three favorites?
Hell yeah, I like that. I want to point out that Spain Confederations Cup game, it didn't make my list, but it was close because I remember I had the flu and I was in bed just being like, USA, bitch, USA, USA, bitches. I remember I had like a blanket over me and shit. My mom's like, "Are you yelling?" It was like home from college. Like, yeah, USA, bitch. But yeah, my number three, definitely. I mean, my list is pretty much the same as you guys. USA Mexico, the 2002 World Cup. Dos a cero. The guys we already spoke about too many times. McBride, I remember him scoring that first one relatively early. I want to say it was like I have it here, 8th minute, and then Donovan had another one later on. I remember that being that was the second World Cup I remember watching, and I remember that really being the coming out party for Donovan. Almost that kind of like solidified him as the guy of the future. The guy who's going to put the team on his back. So that was really important to me. I remember watching that one, and like Zach was saying, I was waking up at 3-4 in the morning with my mom. I remember watching these games. So that was a fun one for me. My number two is the USA Algeria game, the 1-0 win, the Donovan latest in USA history. I was at work, actually. I had to work this one, so I remember I threw everything in the air while I was at work and everything, and walked out.
I'm going home, bitches.
My boss was just completely just. I won't get into it. At the time, he's one of those just assholes, just straight ignorant, didn't care about soccer, didn't care to learn anything about soccer. So I was like, I'm out, bitch. I've been put us in the next round, bitch. And he had no clue what I was talking about. So that was a fun one for me, especially that 2010. I was literally watching. I remember I was watching almost every game every day, and that one I just had to work. So that one stuck out just because I remember watching all the other ones, and that one I was forced to watch at work, thinking to myself God, this is the worst game ever. Oh, I got so boring. I can't believe we can't get the worst era, and Donovan comes through for us. That was a fun one. And I got to put for my number one, the USA Ghana game, the 2014 World Cup, as you guys all just mentioned. And for me, I was at a friend of mine. Shout out to Bobby Corripati. He's a Footy Fetish soldier. He's commented on a couple other things, a couple jersey giveaways. But he, big soccer guy, and he invited me. He was gracious enough to invite me to this big. It was like a pool party for this apartment complex he was in. The complex had its own little private bar that everybody, obviously all the neighbors threw in for the booze for it. And all these people came down from every apartment, and we all were partying. It was great because there's so many people that just didn't even follow soccer. There's some people who had never watched soccer before. There were other people who were giant soccer fans. I remember we all got only American beer. So we had Budweisers, we had Coors, we had all this shit. Only American liquor. I remember we had Jack Daniels, all kinds of crazy shit. And I remember all of us being well, we're going to chug beers for every goal we have. And 30 seconds in, we're all right, we started. It's all these people, these older folks are chugging beers with who had never watched soccer. And they're all man, soccer's awesome. Until they're fuck yeah, it is.
Oh god, that's amazing.
Doing all the USA chants, the I believe we'll win, all kinds of crazy shit. And every time Ghana would do something shitty, we'd just be you're not singing over there. But I also remember that game everybody got a little quiet around that 80th minute, and it got a little nerve wracking. So that was a fun one. That was a fun finish too. I would love to rewatch that one. That was great. So.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Good picks, Mike. I like those.
Absolutely. You guys too. They're fun, man. It's bringing back all this nostalgia.
Dude, I was getting chills watching that 0-2 game today. Like, I had forgot that. And then, like you said, that goal versus Algeria, man. Like, I still probably my favorite YouTube videos where they meshed like all of the fan sections that were watching the game, and just a half second of silence before just the eruptions. It was one of my chills and excitement. It's one of my like favorite moments just in soccer in general.
That's why I love international soccer, man. Like that's why I love international soccer. Like, you have these moments that take entire nations in the whole world and just make them go crazy, and it unites so many people, and I love it, man. It's worth it, ish.
Fuck yeah. In the end, I guess you could say it's worth it. During, though,
it's heartache, man.
Gotta struggle.
And that particular goal too it was such a simple goal, just such a little tap in. It was.
And he came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
Donovan came out of nowhere to put that in. You're like, what?
You can even see when you replay it. He like looks at his feet, like, oh shit! It just like was right by his foot, like perfect timing. It was great.
It's awesome.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, guys, before we wrap things up, we're going to touch on a couple things that are happening around the world, mostly Corona, fortunately. Hugh, I believe you had a little bit of Serie A news for us.
Yeah, there's rumors that Serie A may void the entire season and just scrap it, just because they're worried about ruining the integrity of next season, having to push back all these games. And you have to think that other leagues potentially might follow, just because it's unpredictable what's going to happen and when we'll be able to get a hold on this. Not to mention, if they even try to finish the season, it's going to have to be closed doors because you're going to need vaccines for everyone, unless you're just going to try and infect everyone that walks in there, which is probably going to happen. So it appears that they're going to scrap the Serie A season. It's not confirmed yet, but this was just, on the rumor mill. This could just be one of those random rumors while soccer's down. People are just, filling the internets with just random bullshit. But if they were to do that, I'm curious on y'all's opinion, especially Zach being the Man U fan. Zach, we'll start with you. If they were to scrap the EPL season, do you think it's fair that Liverpool won't be crowned champs?
As a United fan, it's probably the greatest idea I've ever heard. I don't see anything wrong with that. I'm good. Hopefully they do. But it's I don't know if you've seen this issue. All the English non-league teams have already scrapped their seasons. So you're talking about your lower divisions have scrapped it. From a United perspective, I think they would still want to. I think Solskjaer's even said out they want the season to continue just because of the Champions League spot.
Right. Yeah. What do you do?
Especially with the issue with City. Not getting that spot this year, no matter where they finish potentially. So there's that, but it becomes again. I think the Italians may be a little bit further ahead than the English right now. I think they need to scrap it. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't. If Liverpool was named champion, I think in any season, this is the season it makes the most sense to do that. They're two wins away from sealing it.
Yeah.
So, but from a United fan, I hope they never win a title again. Here's this long
if Serie A decide to scrap the whole season, I think they have to automatically give Lazio a Champions League spot because they're in second place by 1 point. For a team like Lazio that hasn't seen a Champions League bid in I don't know how long, to scrap the season and have them start over, I think is just completely unfair. It's heartbreaking, man.
It is, but I think you have to look at the domino effect of that. Is okay. Now, does the second division, do they not get to promote their teams, and do they not get relegated teams? What happens there? It's something we've never seen in our lifetime.
Right.
And so, what happens? I think postponing the seasons are just going to draw into next season. I don't know if there's a good way to do this, to be honest.
Interesting. Modern problems require modern solutions.
Absolutely.
Dave Chappelle is
Philosopher.
Vinny, what's your thoughts there?
There's a rock and a hard place, man. There's no way to go about this.
It's well said.
I think if you're not, obviously, if you're just gonna scrap the season at this point, just leave it as is. I don't hate the idea of doing closed door games though. I really don't. Especially from a one, I think it'll make people a lot saner to have some sporting at home to watch.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and if you can keep, it's pretty easy to wrangle 50, 60 people and make sure that they're taking the right precautions and things like that, and that everyone's tested. And I really hope that that's kind of the way it goes, is that these leagues figure out a way that, okay, let's do closed door games and let's broadcast them, and let's try to get let's try to get about things. If anything, just for the mental health of people at home.
Yeah, that would be a huge boost in spirits around the world to have soccer on TV again.
Yeah,
that's a good
Definitely.
point.
The minute when Serie A said they were wrapping up, that's when I finally went, "Oh, shit's serious in Italy."
Yeah, seriously.
It was nothing before then had me convinced. When Serie A shut down, that's when I was like, "Hey, I need to run by the grocery store prepping because whatever's going on in Italy,
This is a sign.
is not going well."
This is a sign right now.
Yeah, man. So I hope that that's the way it ends up.
Yeah. Booty, do you think Liverpool should be crowned champions?
Yes.
Okay.
Give it to 'em.
Simple.
I say give it to them. All those other teams, you had how many games to catch up to them to do what they did? They did nothing but win. So give it to them.
It's just they're so far in front. They're so far in front. It's like technically, mathematically, yes, somebody could catch them, but is it possible? No, they've got to lose out. Right? Is that going to happen? Highly unlikely.
No.
Highly unlikely.
They did their job. They Sean Payton that shit. They did their job. They showed up. They won the games they needed to win, and that's why we're here, and that's why nobody's close.
Word.
So,
Word.
Sorry, other.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, sorry, other guys. Especially Fitty. Well, you know what? You fucking, you did some illegal shit. Sorry. Like, should have been doing illegal shit.
2 years.
Right.
That's crazy, man. 2 years.
2 years.
Whew. That's a lot of money you're going to miss out on in Champions League.
Yep.
That's the point.
A lot of players are going to miss.
Yeah, that's true. That's the point. Yeah, that's right.
Well, folks, we about that time.
About that time.
Come to our closing comments. This is the point of the show, gentlemen, where everybody gives a shout out to someone. It could be anybody in the world, soccer or non-soccer related, boys. So that being said, I love to put people on the spot. Let's go Zach first. Zach.
Oh, man. I got to go with my buddy, Andrew Slicker, doctor out of Kansas, grew up together. Most of these memories, if not all of them, as far as the fun U.S. soccer memories, involve him as well. So I got to give him a little bit of a shout out. Hopefully get a new listener for you.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Definitely. Like that.
Absolutely, yeah. Spread the good word, the holy word of the footy fetish, my friend. Do it. Vinny, who you got?
Who have I got? This is not super random. We're recording this on April 1st. And a lot of landlords are being really cool about rent. And that is really important right now to a lot of people. So, cheers to you, cool landlords who are being cool about people who are not in a great situation right now and paying rent. Yeah.
I saw actually a really funny April Fool's joke. It was between a landlord and his tenant. And he said, "Hey, man, just want to let you know, I know it's hard times. Like, you don't have to pay rent this month." And the guy was like, "Wow, really? Man, that's great. I can use that money to buy groceries." And the guy went, "Psych, April Fool's." I was like, "Oh, dog. That's cool, bro. That's so cool.
Take. Oh,
That's cool, man.
So the opposite.
That's cool." Yeah, no, definitely opposite. I like that one. I appreciate that one. That's a good
that was
one.
good. Absolutely. What you got, Ocho?
So last episode, I shouted out Ronaldinho, and that was a duo. That was a double. And I wanted to give a proper AC Milan shout out, so it has to go to Kaká. Kaká is definitely one of those players that made me a fan of AC Milan, and being that he's Brazilian, I'm naturally a fan. But I wanted to get a quick one out the way. Since this is the USA episode, I had to give out some kind of USA-themed shout out. So I'm going to give a shout out to Jurgen Klinsmann, who, for me, Vinny's like, yeah. For me, Jurgen he changed the way I thought that we looked at USA soccer when he went out there and just started grabbing all of these random German Americans all over the place and kind of just changed the way we looked at possible players. Like Jermaine Jones showed up out of nowhere, Fabian Johnson, John Brooks, Julian Green, giving us that goal against Belgium. Like, without those players, I don't think we go as far as we did in that World Cup. And then him calling out the MLS was one of my probably highlights of him being a coach. Just being totally open and honest and not being afraid of this big U.S. soccer conglomerate. Johan Cruyff had also pointed this out in his book, saying that because USA Soccer is funded by the MLS, there's a little bit of a conflict of interest of making sure that USA Soccer has MLS players on the roster in order to advertise their brand. And it was really great and very admirable for Jurgen to just talk shit about his sponsor, essentially the people paying his paycheck. So that's my shout out. Jurgen, I love you. I wish you were back with us. Thank you for pioneering USA Soccer.
Jurgen.
Here. I think Jurgen should have been a technical director. I think that is his sweet spot.
Absolutely agree.
I think you and I agree on that, Vinny. Yeah.
Coaching, I have feelings, but I think to get the overarching picture and to recruit and to organize and to lead the general ship from above and kind of be the navigator, I think that's what he needs. And whatever club or country can convince him that should be his job is going to do very well for themselves.
Vinny, did you hear what recently happened to him? Jurgen Klinsmann?
I did. Are we talking about the same thing?
Hertha Berlin.
Yeah.
He's at Hertha Berlin. They spend 70 million euro in the January transfer window. And then, within a couple of days, he gets fired or he, leaves. And you're like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
You go and buy 70 million worth of players and then you just leave? Like, what? Unbelievable. Would love to find out more on that because that's just shocking. I speechless.
They kicked him off the board, too.
Damn. Didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was not great for him. I heard that.
No, definitely not. And I think he just came from a nation. He was just coaching a country, and then Hertha Berlin picked him up. And I feel like he wasn't even there for that long. I don't remember what country he was coaching.
Isn't his son the keeper for Hertha? Or in their setup?
I know he's technically an American, and we can play him as a keeper.
He absolutely is.
Wheels are turning.
Wheels are turning, baby. Here we go. I got you. FC St. Gallen.
Yeah, but who owns this country?
Interesting. I don't know. It says it's his team on Wikipedia.
I know he played. He was a starting keeper for. I don't know if it was the U20s or the U17s, the U18s. But when Klinsmann was in charge, he was playing in the U.S. shirt and starting. I think it was actually really reasonable. And then I know he went to Germany, but dude, you're a professional 17 or 18-year-old goalkeeper. It's tough to get a break.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. With that being said, Booty, who is your shout out?
Lexi Laws. No, I'm kidding. I'm not trying to die today. Anyway, I was gonna keep it. I was trying to keep it. This is gonna be a lady. It's a USA lady. And I was going to save her for the USA Ladies episode, but I wanted to give her a shout out because yesterday was a special anniversary for her. Mrs. Alex Morgan, yesterday was the anniversary of her USA Ladies debut. And it was actually a pretty interesting one because at the time, number one, she was still in college. Number two, it was the first USA ladies game that they played in the snow. And that being said, she was a starter for University of Cal. She said she had never seen and played in snow in her life, and that was her first USA debut game. Game they ended up winning 1-0, thanks to Ali Wambach. But that being said, I kind of want to give her a shout out on here. Cool little anniversary. And also, she's about to have a baby in a few weeks. I believe she's due in 2 weeks.
Interesting shout out, Mike. That's an interesting one.
She's probably
There was a video of her training like a month or two ago, like full on.
Oh yeah.
Like
oh yeah.
she was still moving. And she was still hitting stuff well. It was like, wow, okay, really impressive.
Yeah, that's like 6 months pregnant, hitting bangers, Tupper 90. Like, come on now. That's what's up.
Yeah, she's not fooling around.
Gotta stay in shape.
Gotta stay in shape, dude. Oh man, this was a fun one, boys. Very fun. It's very fun. We want to give a special thanks to you two guys, Mr. Vinnie and Mrs. Zach. Thank you guys for coming on and taking some time to hang out with us today. We very much appreciate that. I know y'all are busy at home, being quarantined, so very much appreciate y'all taking time out for us today. But hey, in the meantime, if you guys ever want to come back, you're definitely more than welcome. I know Ocho and I are blown away by you guys, so y'all are awesome. Thank you guys.
Definitely. Likewise. Very much appreciate you guys coming on, sharing that information with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure, guys. Thank you guys so much. It is the honor of my life.
Behind arguing with you about Jurgen, I think this is number one. Number one.
Behind being a Facebook celebrity on Google.
I might have to go creep that, man. It's like gone from my memory. I know we went back and forth a lot, but what we argued about was just it's gone.
It was great.
It's gone.
It was. I loved it. I definitely.
Well, I can tell you, whatever it was, it didn't end up well.
I mean, maybe I was definitely a saltier person back then. I've definitely chilled out and mellowed a little bit more. So.
Oh no! I mean, like we definitely didn't make the World Cup that cycle. So.
Oh, that's what you meant.
And it took a lot of Klinsmann and Arena to get that wrong. And
yeah. Well, it's in the past. Leave it in the past, man. Let's leave it in the past.
The future is bright.
Yeah, hell yeah, it's bright.
And I think they made it much easier for the U.S. and Mexico to qualify without much drama.
Oh, yeah.
Just live for the future, folks. That's all we got, the future. Oh, man. Thank you guys again. It was freaking awesome. For all you followers out there, all the folks, all the soldiers, be sure to listen. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter for all you twatters, at Footy Fetish Show. You can even, if you'd like, ask us any question you like on our section called What's Your Fetish? Try to keep it G-rated, but we'll get X-rated if you want. You just let us know. With special thanks to all of our soldiers out there of the Footy Fetish Army, holding it down for us. Keep spreading the word, the balls and the feet, the good old gospel of the Footy Fetish, the good word. Keep preaching for us, especially our USA hooligans out there. Please keep on spreading the good old word of the fetish. We very much love and appreciate you. And this has been the Footy Fetish Show, where the fetish is real and the footy is soccer.